Norway?
It's starting. I'll say when we're live. Okay, we're live.
Hello, publicans. This is an Ask Me Anything session with Publica, and I'm CEO Josef Marc, and you can see out my window here in Lillehammer, Norway, that the sun is just going down. And Antons, where are you? You've got sunshine.
Hello, guys.
Hello, Antons.
Happy to join the conversation. I'm in Spain currently, on the way back to Latvia.
That's pretty smart. Spain sounds great. Well, this is an Ask Me Anything, and our community managers have collected a number of questions from the publicans, as we call them. I love the publicans. It's a great and happy bunch. And of course, the first one is, what is Publica? Why and what is this? And why is it really different from other ways to publish or read books? So from an author's perspective, Publica is a new way to sell your books, to crowdfund them, to sell them to the world in general without geographic restrictions for any kind of currency. So authors have a lot to learn about what they can do with this Publica protocol. And for readers, hey, reading a book, it's pretty simple. But there's a superpower that comes with Publica, and that is when you go to read a book, you're also going to get a digital wallet to bring you into the blockchain evolution. And we're going to talk more about that in the other questions. I can see that. So that's the long and short of it. For authors, a new way to make money. For readers, a new way to read books that they can buy with new kinds of money. And there are some technical differences that will really change the way that people consume books. And we'll talk about that over the next hour or so. So the biggest technical issue, technical change, is of course the book ICO. So Antons, what is a book ICO?
Yeah, the question of what is Publica precedes nicely this book ICO question, because if we take very, say, short, medium-term outlook on Publica, then it addresses three goals or three challenges that currently self-publishing authors have. That's funding, like say production of quality titles, creative freedom, and marketing. And Publica, and specifically book ICO, is aiming to solve that. So what is this? So we know what is an ICO. In general, there have been hundreds of them, and Publica has been undergoing this process itself. So it's a process when an author has a certain idea, has a vision, maybe has some MVP or proof of concept, so maybe some first chapters, so even almost finished book, but not yet edited or proofread it or nicely packaged. And they believe that in order to make a really great product, make like a masterpiece, they need funding and help. And ICO, it's a fundraising event. So authors, they start with a book promotion first. And like in the ICOs we're evidencing right now, they are building their community and Publica community, and we are to help them and to explain how to do it in the most efficient manner. And eventually they have a community of supporters who share the vision of an author about the books that they want to create, about their story, plot, characters, and they bring like-minded people. So it's a process how to solve marketing that self-publishing authors are quite busy. They tell that if you go self-publish, then you sell 7 hours for marketing, 1 hour you're writing. And in Book ICO brings necessary funding, and it is a process through which an active community of supporters is created who are actually funding your book and also bringing people who share the same values in the community, and they pretty much multiply your supporters or your fan base. Apart from supporting you, community also gives valuable feedback, the same as we are hearing a lot of great ideas from our community in Publica. The same will happen for authors. And I think apart from readers who will share how they feel about the upcoming book, why they love it, current community of Publica will also help authors to run their ICO efficiently. And how does it actually happen? We will also talk in more detail when we speak about the operational or technological layer of Publica and book ICOs. But on the business level, that's a way to get funding for quality book of production. Large publishers also bring funding, but then you are you're a bit, you may get around 10%, and then they also dictate certain, well, you kind of give away your creative freedom because publishers need to maximize their investment. So they would tell you, okay, you have to participate there, you have to change your public image, please don't tell that in your Twitter, and please tell this instead. And also Book ICO brings marketing potential through the community.
Well, I think that marketing potential is probably the main thing. One of the things that's really changed since digital is that readers, you know how to discover books yourselves anyway. You know how to use search engines. And it's interesting that authors, independent self-publishing authors, in aggregate currently sell more than the other publishers combined. Now, granted, they outnumber them, but part of that is because authors know how to use the internet. They know how to use digital marketing tools. By bringing this out in the open, the search engines and the community can find each other. And that's probably the main effect that I think people will notice first when authors start using the Publica platform and protocol, and when readers start joining in. And speaking for myself, I know that my favorite authors, I want to know what they're going to publish next, and I want to join in. I mean, I don't want to influence the book necessarily. I mean, that's why I like them. But I do want to get involved in helping that book reach a wider audience. And the Publica protocol is made just for that.
And there were several questions, like more operational questions on Book ICO, like will authors only get their collected funds upload a book? Because since that would help.
Yeah, that's kind of a workflow question, right? Sort of. So what's the sequence of the money? When does the author get paid? There's going to be a lot of different business models. It's not going to be one size fits all. We talked about that in our white paper. But so what is well, you're in charge of operations and getting the software out the door and getting the platform.
Yeah,
what's the first iteration going to do? How's that going to work?
Yeah, I just wanted to answer these two questions that we received about the authors, when they will, when the funds will be released, and what happens if someone else other than the author posts a book. Couldn't anyone upload a book at their work when it wasn't theirs? So first,
plagiarism. Someone could copy someone else's book. Here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first question is when the funds, and it's similar to the ICOs we're evidencing right now. There is a lot of about reputation. So if it's a really, I mean, if it's just imagine an author who already has several books published and has an active community, and then they just take money and do nothing. They don't try to write a book.
That doesn't happen very much, but suppose it did.
Yeah, it's not very likely to happen, but how it can be remediated. Well, it's a responsibility of say, it's a goodwill of an author. An author can specify in the smart contract that is used for fundraising the way how the funds will be unlocked. They can unlock it immediately, or they can lock it, say, for a year with, say, 10% of the funds being unlocked every month, commit to publish, say, the next chapter or give some updates. So it's how to say, it's a market offering. So if readers do not believe an author, or they believe that there are some red flags, then market will just react, and this author will.
Yeah, well, that's one of the great things about having this smart contract be part of a process where the authors engaged in a community with the readers, certainly the early adopters and early supporters. If there is anything wrong with the business model, the readers can tell the author about it, right? Yeah. And they can make a better contract.
Yeah, and they can also tell us, because it's very flexible. Concerning second question about plagiarism and copyright, like the utmost ambition of Publica is to use decentralized storage for books, so their content is immutable, and you cannot really kind of, it's there forever. But to start with, we will use Publica Cloud to store the content. So even if there will be such case that first of all can be tracked by community, second, there are some automated tools which help to detect plagiarism. So it's the same as with KYC, that you all know, that you upload documents and,
sure,
and it's automatically scanned. But if there will be a case, then at this point we will be able to just shut down this book. And further, when we have a solution for decentralized storage of books content, there will be just a workflow step when author pretty much orders a certain legal opinion or legal confirmations that this book is safe to introduce to decentralized, immutable storage on the Publica platform.
That sounds interesting. To be able to publish a book that is basically can't be ever deleted. Is that what that means?
Yeah, we will. I think you can also address it in the next question of why Publica needs blockchain, because there are some things that are kind of necessary right now, and there are some more things that hopefully will come into play at a later stage.
Well, yeah, so why does Publica need a blockchain? I mean, I have my own opinions on why Publica would not work without a blockchain, but I like to think of them also in the positive sense of the blockchain brings some superpowers. For example, probably the one dearest to my heart is digital rights management and end user license agreements. Those were imposed by a few publishers on the early digital book platforms that you know, Amazon Kindle, Rakuten Kobo. They were imposed largely, it was part of the times. Software was being copied, video games are being copied, and everyone's trying to get a handle on what does it mean to be digital, given that the cost of copying is zero. So those end user license agreements and digital rights management systems were designed then. We don't really need them anymore. I'm pretty sure that at the time, if the publishers had another option like a blockchain, they probably would have taken it because it's easier, cheaper, and more long-lasting. But it'll be interesting watching how book readers and authors come to learn what that means. So without a blockchain, Publica wouldn't be able to do this because we are we're working without digital rights management. We're using the keys, the digital keys. If you know a little bit about blockchain and the cryptocurrency part or the cryptography part, it's a two-key system. So one of the keys goes in the blockchain, the other key goes in your wallet, and that's how access is controlled. So we can't really do that without a blockchain. We could do it in a database, actually, if you want to correct me on a technical level, but Publica couldn't do it without a blockchain, because this needs to be decentralized and living without Publica's intervention. And then there's also, Antons mentioned a minute ago, the smart contracts that the author uses to make their deal with the readers when they sell the books. Those need to be computed somewhere, and we like the idea of them being computed on the Ethereum network. Again, decentralized, works around the world, extremely robust, no downtime, those kind of things. So the Publica concept includes, if you sell a book, it's for sale all around the world. It's not geo-fenced to any given nation, which brings up some interesting business models for the author. But that also means that's what blockchains are great at. They work around the world without geofencing, with no downtime. So that's one reason why Publica needs a blockchain. Antons, do you have another?
I think there's a really, as we notice that each time we speak with an author, we find another reason why Publica matters to them. But one very practical reason is that blockchain by default brings transparency to sales, and this transparency enforces contracting within the ecosystem. So it's the same as we are evidencing in the current ICOs, that there are many intermediaries offering their services in exchange of certain success fee, right? So that, okay, you raise and you pay us 3.5 or whatever, 25%. And it happens the same with authors, that because authors are best at writing, right? And there can be specialized intermediaries, or the same as there are just Kickstarter only marketing agencies. There can be public only promoters who help authors to get the most out of their upcoming book. and there is kind of natural trust, because they see exactly what's going on with the sales. It's one way, and you can definitely have some other ideas how like what it can potentially enable. And another thing is also, it's a transparency and trust on the side of authors. We heard that many authors, they trust some large brands, but they're really cautious to go with, because they do not know really how can they trust their statistics on sales of digital content. Did they really sell 1,000 books, 100,000 ebooks, or 1 million?
And that's just the sales, right? So in terms of auditing with the Publica protocol, auditing just goes out the window, because then you can just read the sales amount. But there's also the issue of bestseller lists, especially important to popular authors, because the bestseller lists, they're sampled, right? They call a few independent bookstores and say, what did you sell this week? It's not really a very transparent system. But with the Publica protocol, you can see exactly what sold and when. Antons, do you have any, you there?
Yeah. I also wanted to, because I guess one of the questions that some viewers might have is, where do we actually look in the blockchain to see how many books a particular author has sold?
Okay. Yeah. Where do you look?
Yeah. And that's a question that we are getting about. Why do you have two types of tokens? So this PBL token that was a part of ICO, and then in the white paper on the side we also refer to a READ token. So about these two types of tokens, PBL. So Publica is a platform, and PBL it is its private money or its currency. Then each author is registering an ICO for an upcoming book, and every book owns smart contract, because every book has its own unique pricing, its own unique engagement structure. For example, soft cap, or first 1,000 access keys are sold for 5 PBLs, and next 2,000 are sold for 10 PBLs. And there can be different lock scenarios for funds. So every book is unique. and every book will have its own smart contract and thus its own token. So if Publica platform will host 100 book ICOs, they will be, 100,000 book ICOs, there will be 100,000 tokens. We just generally or collectively call them READ tokens, because they enable user to access and read the book. So once author is deploying a contract, well, author, once author is setting up a business case for the book crowdfunding through graphical user interface, Publica is deploying a smart contract that upholds this business logic in Ethereum blockchain, and then the crowdfunding begins. This is a time when readers come, click buy button, and under the hood happens an acquisition of PBL token and necessary amount of Ethereum to pay for gas for the transaction. And of course, we don't want readers to go to an exchange doing KYC. So we like from day one, we understand and we are committing to do it under the hood. But one way or another, they're getting this PBL and they are getting a particular READ token. So if I would write a book about Publica, like Publica, the story of decentralized publishing platforms, and a book token might be just, say, Publica decentralized, for example. And then under this smart contract, initially, I, as an author would be an owner of the whole amount of tokens that I plan to offer to the market. It can be, for example, 10,000 for an ICO phase and 100,000, say, digital copies that I will distribute through Publica platform after the book is published. So it's precisely under the book smart contract we can see real sales activity and how successful a particular book crowdfunding campaign is. So there, Antons, you sort of you kind of went back and forth between what it looks like to the author and to the reader and to the blockchain. I'm hoping that maybe in another AMA someone will ask us what does that look like from the author's perspective per se, assuming they don't want to know too much about PBL, or another frequently asked question is, does a reader have to go to an exchange and learn how to buy cryptocurrency? And of course the answer is no. That, like you said, it's all under the hood. A frequently asked question from authors is, do my readers have to learn anything about cryptocurrency, or what currency can they buy in? But no, of course, when they buy a book, they choose the currency just like you would if you go buy an airline ticket to a foreign country. You choose the currency you want to buy it in. So the PBL, which we sometimes call pebbles, because it's easy to say, the pebbles are working under the hood as the form of money. Also think of it this way. I call it kind of the fire hose effect, where if you're buying a book, that's one pebble that you're throwing in the general direction of the author. But to the author, it's a fire hose of pebbles, right? So the pebbles is an aggregate number because it's an asymmetrical transaction. Author gets a lot when they sell the books, and the readers send fewer for themselves. But the model is also extensible to wholesale models. Libraries, universities, institutions who distribute books, even a church has contacted me about using the Publica protocol. So these are cases where books are being sold in bulk, both to the general public one at a time, but also in sort of a wholesale package as well. So the PBL is a way to, those tokens can account for those transactions at any scale. And then the READ token is the one that actually belongs to that book to read that book. Because when you read it, that's just one transaction. Yeah, and it also gives rise to many behaviors that we are not explicitly targeting, but this and much more will surface. For example, many people in the group commented that they will be very happy to to just transfer for free, to give away the READ tokens for people from, say, less developed countries who might benefit from reading this book, but they do not have means to purchase it. And it's just one of examples how pretty much tokenization of a literary work, of tokenization of an access, and tokenization that brings transferability and brings much more, say, new affordances, so enables new behaviors that we cannot even predict at the moment. So we are focusing on the very core. And if we think about the simplicity, then we also like to share the metaphor of TCP/IP protocol, right? So that's something that we are using every day. However, you do not really know about it, right? Some people not even know what is their IP address is. They do not know that IP addresses exist at all, but they can use internet. So it's not a requirement that they should know anything about it, or about SMTP or HTTPS, right? So we want Publica to be protocols that will work under the hood, and people might go as they wish in order to discover, say, new ways how they can interact between readers, and authors and reader, and also within the ecosystem, because there is a vast ecosystem that is producing books, not just a single author and readers. There are cover artists, editors also play a major role in the creation of quality products, and much more.
Yeah, we call that the Publica circle drawing sometimes. It's a good way to illustrate all of those interactions that occur. Normally in the publishing industry, you don't, if you're a reader, you don't see them because they happen before you get the book. You may encounter advertising, or you may encounter a public library or a book club, or that question of, you know, don't want a paper book or an electronic book. So you're seeing parts of this whole ecosystem, but it's quite a large ecosystem. On our website, you can see the Publica circle drawing in some of the papers, but these are transactional relationships in most cases between the book packager and the book agent, and the advertisers and the bloggers and the podcasters and the illustrators and the peer reviewers and the institutions that they work for. Don't forget academic books are very important. You know, sort of nonfiction, non-entertainment books are actually the largest part of the book market worldwide. And one of the things that I'm most excited about, you mentioned, Antons, is that someone might want to give their books to a deserving entity somewhere. Well, what comes with that is exactly how do you do that? You know, with paper books shipping through an NGO, yeah, that always goes wrong. Sending money so they can buy the book, yeah, that always goes wrong. These places where you might want to send your books, they're probably not very well banked either, or, you know, credit cards aren't in everyone's pocket, or even when the credit cards are there. Let's take an example of a student, you know, right in your own town, actually. I met one and asked him about that, and he said, well, I do have a debit card, but this university needed a credit card, so I had to ask my parents to buy the book, and it was too much trouble. Well, the READ token and the Publica protocol, it works anywhere, with or without. You don't need banks or credit cards or sign-ins or logins or anything. It just works. It's just the READ token goes in the wallet, and so that extends the reach of where you can send the books. And then send, that can be broken down a few different ways too. Am I lending the book? Am I giving the book? Am I selling the book? Anything you can think of, these are the business models that we know the protocol will support, and these are the ones we want to see from the authors and the readers. So, so now that we're kind of talking into all the ways that the public protocol could be used and where it could lead, where did it start?
Yeah, we can take a story time, and travel back.
Story time, yeah.
Yeah, almost one year. The author of Publica ID is Yuri Pimenov, a founder and CTO of the project. And the first conversation actually was held in Silicon Valley in Palo Alto. I was spending there 3 months, like a discovery trip to what's going on there and to learn something from there that I can bring back to my country and my team. And it just happens that pretty much all of my time was dedicated to studying blockchains, smart contracts, Lightning protocols, and we had a rotation. Like we rented as our company Scandiweb. I also will tell about connection between Scandiweb and Publica. We rented a 6-bedroom house there, and just our people from Latvia were going there on rotating basis, like for 2-3 weeks, also to get certain exposure to the modern world and to learn something.
I was there too. I visited you there. I remember.
Yes. Even so, we didn't speak about Publica, but you also happened to be there on another good occasion. And the more I digged in, the more competence I needed. So I invited Yuri to come there because I knew him as one of the, well, he is a guy who has translated into Russian a book called Mastering Blockchain by Antonopoulos. And he was running a blog with blockchain news, and he's still running. And he was also a CTO of Bitcoin Exchange. So I just called and asked, like, can you come for 2 weeks so we can discover something together? And also another member of our team who is my ex-classmate and PhD in quantum computing. So this is a guy you can ask any questions. So I just asked him all the questions about smart contracts so we could set up virtual machines and actually start seeing how everything works. And then walking on the nice streets of Palo Alto and Stanford, Yuri shared his life story that he has been a founder and owner and manager of a small game development studio. And he had very similar struggles that authors have, that there is an idea of a game that potentially can be a next Angry Birds or might not be. And then you invest your time and money and efforts of designers and developers into a title, and it may end up being completely undemanded. So actually tokenizing your license for this game and selling it on a pre-sale, like on the ICO, shows you perfectly whether this game will be kind of demanded or appreciated by community or not. So you can save you a lot of time and money just telling, hey, here's some concept art, here is a gameplay, here is a fiction, here is a game mechanics, rules, and whatever, characters, personas. How do you feel about it? Well, feel good. You can buy 1 token, or you can buy even 10, because now I sell only for $1, and when I will release it, I will sell for 15. And you can get some early supporters only skins or some unique features. And basically, we felt that it's a very good application for an ERC20 token on Ethereum. But we just started to dig further in the technology and what's going on in the space of blockchain. And then we came back to Riga, to Latvia, and then Yuri met people from publishing space, and he felt that there is a need even stronger than he experienced himself. Books. And then we started to speak about books, and we started to be focused on books. And then we also met Joseph, this time in Riga, on the same good occasion. And then we took some long walks on the Riga, on the Baltic beach, discussing blockchain, tokenization, publishing, because Joseph has a background in media and publishing, so he could bring kind of domain expertise into our technological brave new world. And also we discovered that Josef also has been, how to say, attracted to the idea of blockchain, but couldn't find a good say use case or a team that would be as eager to experiment as him. So it all felt like a good start. And I think about July, August, we started what became publicly known as Publica. So that's the story. And the next question the community asked was about Scandiweb. Scandiweb traces its roots to 2003, when I co-founded it with a partner, and since 2008 I became the sole owner of the company that is now 160 people. We are digital, we are full stack digital agency, so it's a great base for Publica, because we can draw from Scandiweb anybody we need. Because even before Publica, we were doing smart contracts, ICO platforms, high load systems on the enterprise level for Walmart, New York Times, Jaguar, Land Rover, Lancome, Sephora, many demanding brands. So once we need a video production, we have a guy right there. Once we need an animation like video explainer, we have a guy sitting right there. When we need a product owner, project manager, scrum master, or team lead or senior developers, designers, front-end guys, marketing assistants, we just have them right there, and we can just get them on demand instantly, because I would say that since August, September, Publica became my first priority. So I think it's a great future for Scandiweb to co-found and to develop such project as Publica. So officially, the best minds and programming hands and designers web are there to make Publica as successful as possible.
It's an important partnership because I've done many startups, and I love the startup experience for many reasons, chief of which is that people get creative and they come up with, they're inquisitive, they ask questions, they're curious. But one of the weaknesses of most startups is that the team isn't all that used to each other. And that's one of the challenges when you put together a startup, is how do you get people to be fluid with each other and be effective and form and reform teams quickly in response to what you're finding in the marketplace. And when I got to Riga and Scandiweb, I saw that that was already there. Scandiweb had grown organically with its business, and I was there on other business, and I just looked around and saw, you know, this has a lot in common with what we learned in Silicon Valley about rapid iteration and listening to your customers, and they had overcome already the challenges of being remote. And Silicon Valley is great at bringing people there and then putting them together in a room, but doesn't scale too well to the rest of the world. And I've had my own challenges with that with my other startups that I didn't want to base in Silicon Valley. And I saw at Scandiweb that same, culture had been rebuilt and had dealt very well with remote customers. So I thought, well, this is going to work in many levels, but also as Antons mentioned, some of the best minds of Scandiweb are working on Publica, and that's for a couple of reasons. I think one is the blockchain it's important and challenging, and people like a challenge, especially people that are really good at what they do. I certainly do like a challenge. That's why I was looking for something within the digital media television space that could support this kind of challenge. But it's great for me with the Scandiweb team that the Publica team has formed from people who already work well together, right? We're sort of over that hump immediately. And we can just go right to the listening to the authors, listening to the publicans, listening to the readers, and just getting stuff done. So
yeah,
lucky.
And now to very fast operational questions. There are 3 of them. How can I buy Publica coins or tokens? Well, as Publica tokens, PBLs, it's ERC20. So the first place where they have been available is Ether Delta. And there are 2 exchanges that are currently offering Publica. That's Publica and KuCoin. How funds are being utilized? There was a budgeting paper on the website that describes our forecast for manpower necessary to produce the platform and on the accompanying marketing. I would tell that there is no exact percentage that like 60 is development, 40 is market, or 30 is marketing, 10 is operational. How to say? Currently, we are just we are participating in every meaningful opportunity possible, and honestly, I don't think that having much more budget would really help us to do more, because there is certain say depth in the market. Especially we talk about authors, it's a new idea for them, so we to how to say, we can how to say, it's we have to be very careful with first steps to make sure that we start right and do not position ourselves as a technology startup or something, but we educate the authors on the affordances of blockchain, or we just keep it all together and we just go straight to the value proposition for them, and we just have blockchain under the hood. Joseph will share on the publishing events we are participating next year, and we also have a schedule of notable crypto markets token economy events where we will be speakers or participants. The next question was that our hard cap was 1 million, and based on the say there was certain exchange rate. Ether was about $325 when we have closed an ICO, and now these funds are a bit more than 2 million. So what Publica is going to do with this money? Well, first of all, it fluctuates, right? A few days ago it was 1.4, and now it's back to 2 million plus. Currently, we did not change anything to fiat. We work on opening bank account in the country of our jurisdiction where we are incorporated, that's Gibraltar, and we will move to fiat as much as necessary to cover ongoing costs. That's cost of development, marketing, and participation in events. So having an funding will help us to, how to say, to choose more, right? So if we would have, say, 10 opportunities to do something great, maybe if we choose only 2, now we would be able to choose 3 or 4. So that's it. This just gives more magnitude to what we are doing. At the same time, we do not plan any increases in the budget in upcoming, I would say, 1 to 3, or even 1 to, say, 3 to 6 months, because it's not an extensive development, right? We are not, it's not that we are like planting trees, right? So we just hire twice more people and we plant twice more trees. If we just bring 10 more developers, it will not help. The key here is to make authors actually start using our platform little by little. So we will not actually we don't want to bring them the entire platform. Hey, here's the entire platform, please use it. We will release a very small part first that will be registration and, I would say, training module, where we will present them with the concept and how it can work for them. We'll work them walk them through. We will set up a community support. So they will be, so when we release, say, an upcoming book crowdfunding page module, where is like a page builder, where they can actually share the vision of their upcoming books, they will be already aware how does it work, why it is important, and what are the, how to say, the attributes of campaign, and why do they matter, and how they interplay, and how affect their result. So currently we need as much as this, and of course we are doing some research ahead on what kind of formats will be supported, what e-reader we will use, how we will work with exchanges, and say an evolution of smart contract, right? But it's not that this additional budget will speed up things dramatically. I think it brings everybody, including community, more confidence that we are not running out of funds. And it also gives us opportunity to explore more and to, how to say, to employ, to use just more opportunities that we could use otherwise.
Well, yeah, opportunities is what's going to come up a lot. So our next question I see here is about integration into existing wallets, which is on a technical level, I don't think it's difficult. I mean, that's the point of the ERC20 token, is it's supposed to be transferable from wallet to wallet. But what's more interesting is the partnerships that implies. And as Antons mentioned about the budget, you can't make the software to appear faster by throwing more developers on it, but it can go wider. And that's, I think, should be opportunity driven. You know, I'm talking to, we announced Publica at the Future Book in London on December 1st. And that was a great introduction. Actually, some publishers sent their own people to listen to my presentation. But there was a wide variety of people in a wide variety of businesses that are looking at Publica as a blockchain enabling tool for what they already do. So specific to wallets, yeah, that's what's great about doing ebooks this way, is if you already do something in publishing, but you don't really have an entree into this digital wallet thing, I think that's another superpower that Publica is bringing, which is so many people are going to meet their digital wallet because they went to read a book. So I joined a book event, a book ICO, because I heard about it, I liked the author. I got involved. Maybe some publicans brought me in. Here comes my book. And inside the app, there's a digital wallet. And that'll be interesting to see how that spreads around the world. And then we have a question about ebook formats, which I think is very closely related. And also to the question about budgeting, because ebook format, it's not all that difficult, right? It's just translation. Unless you're an author, then suddenly it matters a lot, because the different formats constrain what you can write and how you can present it. And of course, Antons mentioned before that part of the point of this is to get books made really well, high quality. Well, the formats have a play in that. On a technical level, which I'm going to ask Antons to explain better, but I know from my perspective, all the modules that Antons talks about, the read token, the wallet, the e-reader rendering part, those are modules. And I want to make sure that those can be used widely by other partners that we work with. I don't want to see every author and every reader have to come to Publica.io to find a book or sell a book. That's not the point here. The point is to decentralize, embed this in all the e-commerce that they already do in their websites and in their processes. So the ebook format isn't really the issue. We should support them all on a modular basis based on the market demand. And that's part of what that funding is for, is how widely could we spread that development to meet that demand.
Speaking with Joseph right before that about, I think that we just misspelled the question, that the question was not about integration into existing wallets, but into existing e-readers.
Okay, well, kind of the same answer. You know,
people were like, what about like all the players that are already out there? And Joseph looks at it even wider, that say we have a smart TV, right? So if you integrate the wallet there, it means that you can send your READ token right to your TV, and it can unlock certain content that you have purchased. So it's just a matter of a change that will either bring wallets as an integral part of modern applications by itself, without us, and once it's there, it's just a matter of you sending there your READ token, having a query to the, say, Publica API to know, like, to check to what these READ tokens correspond on the blockchain, to what smart contract, and where is the link to get this content to you. Or we, of course, will go to them and tell, hey, before you start your own development, that might take some time. We offer, and that's also part of the budget. We will explore and see what kind of existing tools are, how to say, are interesting in terms of us developing a free integration for them with Publica wallet. So pretty much they just integrate certain piece of software that puts a cryptocurrency wallet with all the cryptography enabled public key, private key, signature, that all the, say, the consumption device, be it ink reader or e-reader or some other reader, to authenticate itself and get access to the content you are entitled to get based on the ownership of your READ token.
And I love the example of the smart TV because I came from television before, and that's such a great example because television manufacturers, they have to make those apps. Of course, they get help from the branded name that you see in the app, but really it has to work on their TV. But they're not going to deal with the blockchain part. They're not going to deal with the commercialization of the READ tokens any more than they deal with your subscription to Netflix, right? That's not their bag. They're going to want that part to come from us. So that's not only the televisions, but also the existing e-readers. There are e-writers, which I think are fascinating, especially in peer reviewing and academic applications, and even multiple author books where the e-writer itself, they run apps. And what they all have in common, and I wrote a blog post called A Billion Storefronts with a Common Linkage. These are the kind of things I'm thinking about, where Publica isn't about one application of the READ token or the Pebble tokens that enable the e-commerce. It's about whenever you want to run an application to take advantage of Internet of Things, there's going to be a commercial part to it. And that's where the Pebble token comes in and the READ token to give you access.
Okay, and then there are these questions that come together that is Publica based on Ethereum protocol. And what we are going to do is a transaction fee, because people comment that no one is going to wait for hours and pay crazy commissions to buy the book. Well, first of all, currently, Publica doesn't have any scalability issues because we haven't done any transaction. It doesn't mean that we are not aware about scalability issues, but we believe that we first have to deliver the, how to say, minimum viable product, and currently Ethereum, that's the most viable option that is out there. And of course, we are aware of both Ethereum plans to develop Swarm or alternative blockchains that are either out there or under development. But we do not see it as a deal breaker, and if we ourselves will have to pay $1 transaction fees to make first transactions and satisfactory, we will just do it. And meanwhile we do it, we of course will see, or like maybe prior to that, we'll see what is our migration plan, because the platform or its architecture is being developed having having potential or very much likely migration in mind. At the same time, in my experience of software project development, I know that it's also a very likely path to failure, or like path to research without delivery, when people start premature optimization or think, oh, there are some issues, crypto kittens, or something is happening there, so let's just stop and research for a better alternative. We are not stopping. We are working on Ethereum blockchain. We are working with Ethereum smart contract. We are ready to handle the potential downsides that we might experience with a platform launch. And we are ready to pay the price for it, to make our first users enjoy the platform, sharing positive feedback. Pretty much they shouldn't notice that it's a blockchain transaction. It should be as fast or faster than their usual credit card processing. Let me see what.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about that. I mean, it's with any other reader's experience, there's actually a lot going on in the background already. They have their own scalability issues.
Yeah, and actually, it's not that us are the only guys who should be concerned about scalability. I think there are guys who are much more concerned with scalability than us, right? So we are how to say? I think there will be, say, some solutions for this challenge before we start kind of.
Yeah, we don't have to solve that one ourselves. A lot of people working on that.
So
what is this question about? Will we develop a wallet? What does that mean?
That's sort of that question. Publica cannot exist without its own wallet. In our case, this wallet will be coupled with a reader, and it's like we are either developing reader with a wallet, or we are developing wallet with a reader. But maybe a wallet will be a part of a modern applications just starting from the next year, right? So yes, of course, we are exploring open source libraries for wallets. They're naturally all open source, and readers, and figuring out how to couple them to kind of in the best possible way for the purposes of working MVP. And currently developers also did a proof of concept and integrated some, so you can check it in the documentation and source code. So yes, we will have Publica reader. It will not be branded as Publica wallet, because we are not say transactional company. So we're not about financial transactions. We're not about holding funds in a wallet. We're about holding content. But as we are built on blockchain, to maintain your content, you need, and like in order for us to authorize you to access it, we need to have a wallet functionality integrated. So yes, there will, but it actually will be a reader app with a wallet.
Well, you mentioned that proof of concept video, and someone asked, Vsters did a great job of explaining it, and the authors that I've spoken to say, yeah, that's a great user experience, it kind of matches what they have in mind. But there was a question about, could the proof of concept also enable something like buying one chapter of a book at a time? And I love that question, because yes, the answer is yes, but even more importantly, the business models of the internet age of digital books were pretty much trying to make one size fit all, because they were solving bigger technical problems, right? Amazon had to develop the Amazon cloud. That was a problem on its own and turned into an opportunity. Well, that was good, but the downside of that was the business models were really simple. Business models in the digital era should be much more open to experimentation, just like any other software where you experiment with this and see what works and then you make a change. Let's do the same with books and with their business models. And that question about chapters, well, what if you have a book that's written where each chapter is by a different author? And how do you pay each author based on the chapter that's being bought and read? Well, that's a perfect case for a smart contract, especially if you want to automate the e-commerce of that. And Google itself has been experimenting with book formats, ebook formats that can read from blockchains. I don't know if you knew that. And they're just, and why? Because Google wants to organize the world's information. We also love the part that by having that information on the blockchain, it makes the accounting really simple as you go into these more complicated but useful business models. And we'll just be talking to the authors and the readers. And Antons also mentioned that really important job of the person who understands the Publica protocol and the process and how they can help authors and readers and publicans. I think that's going to be a really important job. We're kind of looking for a name for it. You know, maybe it's in television, it's what you would call a showrunner. But in publishing, we used to call them book packagers. One of the most famous marketers ever, Seth Godin, spent 9 years as a book packager, and kind of like a project manager. But it's going to be important because Publica, we can, of course, program the smart contract to do whatever business model you come up with. Someone's got to explain that to the people in the business model. So we look forward to those ideas and implementing them. So Antons, you have another question about, or do you have anything to say about the proof of concept video?
Yeah, something about user experience of buying tokens. And yes, of course, we want readers to, how to say, to become owners of READ tokens in the like one-click way, right? So they just, well, if they come with cryptocurrency, then yeah, it's very easy for them. But I would assume that majority, like, well, depending on the book title, of course, if we have a famous trader or hedge fund manager writing a book, or we have a new book of Antonopoulos, then possibly these people come with cryptocurrency, right? Well, and if we have a romantic fiction, then most probably they will not. They will come with credit cards, right? So they just register their credit cards, and then we have to set up a certain like say scripting under the hood to capture their fiat currency and convert it in the necessary amount of Ether or Bitcoin, or by straight PBL if we have a PBL fiat exchange pair, for example. Well, I will go into details, but the goal is to have this process as seamless as possible. Well, and it's quite realistic because even if it is fiat to crypto, in the amounts necessary to a usual shopper, to a usual buyer, a usual contributor and supporter, it should be a threshold that is like where how to say, institutions are allowed to trade without KYC procedures. So it's under 150 to 150. Say in Europe, it's 150 to 150 euro. For example, Revolut, I can buy cryptocurrency there without KYC, but only up to $250. And the next question was why would our authors need a KYC? I think it's more like a precaution because let's imagine there is a bad actor and this actor wants to set up, well, he's actually, or she is not an author, but somebody is just setting up a campaign and just uses this crowdfunding vehicle to convert certain fiat into crypto. Of $1 million in crypto, and then they essentially able to convert 1 million fiat. And I mean, credit card might not be the only way how people can purchase PBL tokens. to buy READ tokens for this book, and then essentially they are becoming an owners of 1 million in crypto without KYC. So I think it's more like precaution, and I think that authors will be apprehensive to that because they will need anyways these procedures, these documents once they start to, and we can of course help them, but they will need to convert their PBLs into fiat or into other cryptocurrency, and then other cryptocurrency to fiat sooner or later. And it's up to them when they do it. They do it instantly. The same as Publica, we didn't convert yet anything. Because they might expect that their friend, a best-selling author, is going to launch their book campaign next month, or they might expect that it might be worthwhile to wait. So it's about KYC, and the next question I would address to Joseph.
What other media besides books? Well, the formal answer is any digital media that relies on a read access concept. But of course, that games and so on. But probably more importantly, Jeff Bezos said when he started Amazon, keep it simple. And my first blog post mentioned, what chances Publica have, with all these giants in the publishing business. Well, every giant can be, every startup can do something about the giants if they do one thing really well. So we're going to do one thing really well. But what's interesting about books is they lead to derivative rights. And Antons and Yuri and the team are working on what to do about that. If a book is successful, and certainly if you're a best-selling author, it's very important to you that you be able to exploit the derivative rights from the story. So that will lead us organically into all kinds of media, because especially media that relies on a story. And we'll just take it organically as it comes, follow the hits, basically. What other?
Okay.
Yeah, so the alpha and the beta. So I just said, Antons, follow the hits. So that's there you go, segue to you.
I'll just couple this question with a more direct one that was asked in a YouTube chat, is when you're going to release platform, when you're going to release alpha and beta. And it's what's Publica plans for future, stick to roadmap, or rework it and set new milestones. We have a roadmap published on the website since the ICO. And this question about when alpha and beta is.
So have you had any thoughts about that roadmap? Anything that changes since the ICO?
I think what is kind of the most important about the roadmap, and I think that's one of the, I mean, that's a conventional way to ask, say, when a beta and alpha, yeah, because majority of people, and I think that crypto markets, they used quite kind of populated by technologically advanced people, right? Who could understand cryptography, elliptic curves, public-private keys, I think, signing, and so on. And such people like us, we care about the product. So that's a natural question. Okay, when you release something, when you release an MVP, and that's what many ICOs are doing. So when they're getting funding, they're just kind of locking the doors and start developing the software. The thing we are recognizing, and we are very vocal about that, in our case, the software, it means nothing. We will release as much, as fast as authors will adopt what we have released previously, right? It's technically, we can, based on the roadmap, it is more or less a year, or we can do something smaller, and between half a year, we just release it. We have released that. 24 hours later, nothing happened. 48 hours later, nothing happened, right? So we want to release a very small piece it in the beginning of January and see how authors will use it. It will be just a registration, and I would say something like forum or group or questions and answers and tutorials and education, because we want that once we release a second stage or second small release, our authors already are waiting for it and they're starting to really work on it, rather than we are releasing again a full-fledged platform and people just starting to scratch their heads. Okay, so what is that, and how do we use it, and why do we really need to imagined and have spent the budget and time on coding? So instead, we have this is a very interesting project. Probably when you are creating a new blockchain, you cannot release like 1/10 of the solution, right? You have to provide fully functional technology. Say in our work, we are much more, say we have a certain vertical, right? We have a market, and we have a lot of things outside of technology scope. And it means that we first have to kind of, how to say, that we should not be, we are not technology first company, right? So we should be very aware of making sure that we have a certain demand, expectations, and maybe even like a waiting line of authors who understand how to use, why to use, and what to do with the modules we are releasing. Because in the end, what we want to achieve is that there are billions of storefronts, or at least hundreds of book ICO pages, well done, having authors with existing community behind them, having well-written book visions, having maybe even a team like a traditional ICO pages telling that, hey, here's me, author, and I also have these people in the team. We have the funding. Here is a famous editor, and here is another success enabler. So tell us what do you think, and here is how you can contribute. So that's what our primarily concern. So we are having like a benefit of having Scandiweb that is scalable, so we can scale our team like from 4 to 40 on a relatively short notice. But first we have to really make the case for scaling, because now there is no point in scaling. We rather have to scale our efforts in onboarding authors and having them kind of, how to say, planning their next book or planning their almost ready book with Publica.
Yeah, because ultimately it's, we have this opportunity to take the superpower and use it to do things that aren't just a copy of what came before. And that's an excellent lead into the next question, which is, would Publica work for e-comics? Well, yes. And that's a perfect example of e-comics have been underserved by the existing business models that were developed for iTunes and Kindle originally. Of course, people can read e-comics on those platforms, but the business models of e-comics and the technology weren't very well served by those platforms. Wasn't their highest priority. What's great about e-comics is they're kind of halfway between a TV show and a movie and a book. People definitely want to blur the lines there, and we can do that because we're not building the Publica protocol based on solely what can the reader do, what can the application do. We're building it on the read access token and the commercial transaction that occurs. And I appeared on one video podcast before our ICO at Bad Crypto because Travis and Joel are both authors. And one of the things we talked about before the show was Travis especially wants his next book to be, is it an e-comic? Is it a video game? Is it a movie? Is it a book? He actually wants to play with that. And that's not all that difficult, really. So we're just going to follow the authors and what they want to do with their business models and support them. And of course, e-comics are very popular in some parts of the world where we want to take advantage of Publica's ability to cross borders with no friction.
Yeah, I just picked up one question from the chat, one
Yeah.
that we have been discussing internally, but we didn't address it in our questions. That from Brent MacArthur. So the question is, are you planning to publish a list of Publica authors sorted by genre on a future directory site or on the Publica site? Well, we of course will have certain featured ICOs of authors, so new authors can actually see how does it work, how does it look, how successful they are. But in general, we don't see ourselves as a backlog. You probably need to have 100,000 of titles, right? Otherwise, your directory will look empty. And that's also what Joseph was referring as a billion of storefronts. We rather envision a, say, one-to-many relationship between author and reader that we do not interfere. So there is no deals like you were looking for this book, but we actually recommend you to another book that are cheaper. Or we recommend these books because you can bundle them and get free shipping or something. So I would tell that if you are not invited, if you do not know about this particular author ICO, then you kind of almost cannot find it. It's a private business of this particular author and the supporters or community that this author is able to activate. And maybe at some later stage, when we have an overwhelming amount of titles, or we have targeted a particular vertical, and one that probably is that we have on our list is of course books on blockchain, cryptography, token economy. Then we can tell, hey, here is a category of books that you might be, or a category of ICOs you might be interested to know, right? But otherwise, I think we might have something very polar in the beginning, and it might have very distorted kind of user experience that they came maybe for, and you might know that about 60% of self-publishing titles, these are romantic fiction, right? So you came for romantic fiction, and then you clicked somewhere, and then you just like cryptography tips and tricks, right? So you might be like a bit like what?
Well, there will be such a thing as the blockchain bestseller list, by the way, and we'll definitely publicize that. But it's more important, you know, when the Publica. Yes, if their interest is in Publica, and there are many authors who want to be the first, right? The inaugural set, as I call it. And that's important. That's history, right? That's going to go in the book of the history of how Publica was founded, for sure. And as a listing, that's fine. But more importantly, authors really care about discoverability. So Antons is right. If you're invited, right, you're part of the in crowd of a book ICO, that's great. Our publicans who are supporters of Publica in general, if you want their help in publicizing your book, I bet they're going to help you. And there's no better army than the publicans to get on your side. But if when an author's looking for discoverability, the most important thing, I believe, is that it all be done out on the open web and not hidden behind the API or walled garden of any given publisher.
Okay, let me address the next question of, can someone explain to me how the user side of Publica is going to work? Well, by user here, I assume it's a reader. It's a reader, and it's very much in line with the question we just addressed, is that you're not just coming there and discovering on your own. It's rather than you have been invited either by the author that you're already following, or by the community of this author, or certain targeted marketing campaigns. Say if you're a member of readers.
Yeah, the invitation could come from anywhere.
Social media, right? So it can be, author can set up a referral campaign if they wish, or it can be any I know.
Bloggers, podcasters. You know, how many books are kind of cooperations?
Tell that, hey, I plan to do my next book with you, and I have a certain say airtime at the conference, so I will also mention it there. So authors are creative, and they will figure out how they want to invite their readers into the crowd sale. And what's more important, I think, even that their community will care about how this author can be successful, the same as Publica community cares about how to make Publica successful. So they actually suggest us to make it, for example, right? And the next their suggestion is to do Ask Me Anything with development team, that we are also going to do. But the same will happen with author. This author will be just exposed to this kind of crowd intelligence or crowd promotion, or we'll see what it will be. But the first step in the user experience that you are directly invited, right? So you are not just anonymously browsing somewhere, or we are suggesting to you something. You are invited, like from reader to reader, or author to reader, or a certain influencer that you might follow. And then you discover the book, you discover the terms and conditions when this particular author is going to write, like to finish the book or publish first parts of it. And then you make a decision, and if your decision is yes, if crowdfunding didn't start yet, then you can just sign up for the news, for the crowd sale, or you can just hit contribute buy now button, and just and then you will be redirected to the App Store or to the web app for registration, because you naturally have to do it through Publica e-reader wallet, and we will open source it. So if there will be a party, say for some reason believing that they are the best to address Publica protocol in, say, Malaysia or any other country, then they can just take it and use it, and hopefully they will have PBL as an underlying currency, and I think that will be like one of the terms. And the next thing, they are choosing the same, I mean, in the convenient, conventional way, they're choosing the means of payment, right? So usually it's a credit card for people not familiar with cryptocurrency. Their money has been captured, they're becoming an owner of a READ token. So it means that in their reader, kind of in their Publica library, they see the book like with a cover page as an upcoming, maybe with an estimated time of delivery, and they will start receiving some push notifications on the book update, and eventually they can tap on it and actually read it. So that's the user experience, and I think it's not way different. So I mean, we don't want to educate reader, right? We want to educate authors, but we don't want to educate reader. And of course, if they want to take a step further and discover that their wallet actually has a particular blockchain address, like X0 something, and they can go to Etherscan and see, they can see that their READ tokens are not just somewhere in Oracle or MySQL database, but they are stored, or they are immutably written in the blockchain, in the Ethereum blockchain currently, then they can do it. And if they want to export their private key and paste it into my Ether wallet and transfer their READ tokens to some other address, then they can do it as well. But the basic, like the default path, is as conventional as it can be.
Well, and speaking of conventional as it can be, New Year's resolutions 2018 is upon us. So where are we going to go in conventional publishing and book conferences in the year 2018? I believe Alexander's can put up a link, and he'll be publicizing this, coming up. But here's the highlights. In February, we've got in San Francisco, California, USA, we've got a writers conference. It's pretty important, and I've been speaking to Joel Friedlander, who is very involved in the author community in California. And we also have San Miguel, Mexico, an international writers conference. And I think it's very important that I go to that one because Spanish language is very important. You know, it's the Publica protocol works just as well in Spanish. And I want to cement our relationship with Publica.la, which is a Latin language digital publisher already that we've announced before. And then in London in February, there's a writers conference. It's kind of a special one. I believe it's called 20 something. The link is there. It's kind of a special one, kind of put together by authors themselves. And that's what blockchains and Publica are all about, is choosing yourself. In March, back to Florida, to the Association of Writers and Programs. It's kind of a large, it is the largest organization of writers. And then in April, back to London for International Book Fair, and Austin, Texas for the largest independent self-publishers conference. This is quite interesting. The Publishing University, they call it, .org, and it's just been growing by leaps and bounds. And I think that's telling. It tells us something about authors in general and how they want to approach their publishing life. So I want to make sure that I'm there to speak to them in person. And then there's also an authors and agents conference in Boston in April. Antons talks a lot about the authors and the readers' experience, but don't forget that their agents are really the ones involved in the commercial side of what they do. The authors want to write, and they want their agents to take care of the money side. And in Publica's protocol, we're going to have what we're calling these book packagers, or these experts in how to run the Publica protocol, which is about commerce. Then in May in New York is the International Book Fair in the USA, and London has its annual book awards, so we'll be there. And then in June, off to the International Book Fair in Seoul, Korea. I think that's also very important to stress the cross-border nature of the Publica protocol, and present ourselves all over in all nations and all languages that we can possibly get to. Followed by July, Hong Kong, their International Book Fair. And then in August, back to New York, where there's a large writers conference. Again, I want to make sure that I'm talking to authors and that we understand their business models, and that they can get what they want out of the commercial side of the Publica protocol. And then back to Beijing for their International Book Fair on the other side of the planet. China is a huge market, and I'm pretty sure Publica is going to be very successful there. In September, Tokyo, Japan, its International Book Fair. And then in October, back to Germany for the International Book Fair, and in a quick trip back to the US for the Digital Book World, which is in Nashville, Tennessee. And if you remember, we announced Publica to the publishing industry on December 1st of this year at Future Book in London, because at the end of the year, publishers and authors and the businesses around the entire ecosystem, they want to think about, you know, what's coming next year. So in October there in Nashville, that's the USA's version of that. And then November, Singapore has a writers festival, which draws from all over Asia. Singapore is just a great venue for it. And then back in December for a repeat of the Future Book, where we announced Publica for the first time. So a pretty full year, and that doesn't even count the blockchain-related events, which I'm sure will be at some of those as well. So what's next?
Yeah, connected question, but as we described it, we have several streams of marketing, and one is clear authors, and another is create the community. So the question was, is Publica going to start advertising more aggressively, or are they waiting for the actual platform? Well, we definitely will grow the, how to say, the outreach perimeter. We'll participate in notable conferences as speakers, and we are working on getting similar exposure as we had during ICO, like interviews in profile media. At the same time, we do not want to run kind of, say, we of course will run before the train, so to speak, right? Because speak a lot of what it will be eventually. But we want also to say, we want to base our marketing messages on the underlying activities. So once we have, say, a notable author signing up, and we have all the kind of confirmations received, so of course we will use it as we'll promote it heavily. So we just work on pretty much getting an objects for the promotion, rather than just inventing the objects or promising certain announcements. Advertising and
yeah, I like to make announcements more than predictions. And the next question is about very related. I plan to bring big authors. Well, of course, you know, some of the world's most successful authors are in fact independent publishers, and I think they're going to enjoy the Publica protocol. But I do want to point out that the more successful and famous an author is, the more important it is to them and their own marketing and publicity machine, and they have one, that they make any announcements themselves. And of course, we will announce with them, but the timing is up to them, and that is, of course, what we're talking to. And the more successful and well-known an author is, the more pre-existing contractual relationships they have. So it gets a little more complicated. But we're working on it, and we'll definitely bring that news out exactly at the time that it works best for them. And the next question is about captions in Korean, Japanese, Mandarin, and so on. Captions to what, Antons?
Yeah, the captions, probably it's very easy to update captions. We just want to...
Oh, like our explainer videos, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we want to have like more of like a strategy view on that. And so far we received, say, there is one community member active in Germany, a scientist who has suggested, well, who has written, I would say, like a business case for Publica in the academic press and into peer review space. So we definitely can translate this. We just want to be sure that we have a, say, we have a manager, or at least a community manager there who is say, sharing our vision, understands our roots, technology issues, like strategy, and then we can kind of dedicate more attention to that market. Otherwise, once we have an MVP or certain, how to say, activities working on in one language, we of course want, I mean, the very first idea of the Publica was long tail. We want to be available everywhere, just like blockchain, right? So there are no borders for blockchain transactions, so neither there should be for public. And we don't want language to be a barrier, so the interface and all the explainer videos naturally will be translated.
Yeah, and you know, translation per se, you know, everyone has their own tools for that. Google Translate works great, but Antons, I think you said the important thing is a community manager that understands both the community where these books are going to be published, as well as understands what Publica is doing. So publicans, go find us some of those.
Yeah, and the next question is, are you guys serious about this project? If yes, why I don't see any market funds being utilized? So, how to say, we definitely don't want to utilize funds in such marketing that you might see as banner ads. Of course, we have still retargeting enabled. We don't want just to how to say, to run way too fast before the train. Currently, the funds are utilized into development, and described, we have certain conferences lined up for the next year, as well as certain media activities. And one of the great suggestions of the community was a Twitter giveaway campaign that is running now, and it has been able to bring, I think, extra 200, let me check. Yeah, around extra 200 members, and it also, because as our community tells it, how to say, owning a coin is adoption, because once you own something, then you naturally dig deeper in the project, and we believe that Publica is a good project to dig deeper, understand its benefits, and then naturally you just start sharing with your friends, and eventually your friend might be also a best-selling author, right? You're our best marketing effort. I think in the project like ours, we have to rely heavily, at least in the beginning, on the community as a real game changer in marketing, rather than on conventional marketing strategies. I think it's also has proven in many ICOs that have been cooperating with traditional media agencies. They went nowhere, they went too far as just to spend the budget without actually delivering their message to the audience who would appreciate it. And about level of aggressiveness, the crypto market is very fast-paced, and there are a lot of news. We are aware of that, and once we have notable news, we are making sure that it's communicated not just across all the channels under our control and communicated to the community, so you can also share it in your channels, but we also engage some paid media if necessary to increase the outreach of truly notable news, for example, such as successful book ICO or new campaign of that is regarded as a best-selling author.
Yeah, well, the next question is for me, but I also want to add to what Anton said. I think marketing is, everything you do is marketing, but it matters more what you're saying, what the message is in the marketing, than how loud your megaphone is. And I especially love the idea of the publicans being the carriers, the town criers, because that kind of marketing is the most effective marketing in the world, and that's been pretty well established after the years of inbound permission marketing and the every possible robot for email spamming. It's all been tried, but what works is exactly the same thing that worked for Publica itself, which was the word of mouth. People who are interested spread to people that they knew, and that's all you need. That really works. So why don't we offer accounts for stores instead of going after authors? Well, I blogged about that, and Anton's mentioned a couple of times, 1 billion storefronts with a common linkage. That probably is, so the answer is yes, of course. We also mentioned that there are going to be some experts who are really good at running a Publica project for an author or for an institution, or they just do that serially, right? They do it for an author, then for an institution. It's a job in itself. And so the stores and other accounts that you're talking about, absolutely love the idea of every possible institution or business coming and using the Publica protocol for its e-commerce where there's a read access token involved. But the proof of concept video that Viesters made last week, again, we're just kind of trying to start simple, get the idea across, because this is not a copy of some other business model that you can find out there. This is not another publisher with a e-reader app, not even close. This is something that people are going to have to get their heads around, and businesses are going to get their heads around. They're going to find that it's incredibly efficient to have the money transfer immediately, whether it's drips and drabs or in bulk. And as Antons mentioned, especially business accounts, be able to leave their tokens in their PBL wallets, leave the pebbles at rest because they're fluid in motion. Part of how we came up with that name. That makes a lot of sense for business throughout the publishing ecosystem and sub-economics. It's its own economy within itself. And if you take a look at what the books that you like today, if you look behind the scenes and how do they get made and how are they distributed and how are they marketed, how are they publicized, how do they get from the digital version to the paper version? Is it print on demand? Yes, sometimes it is. Is it warehoused paper? Or what about these digital magazines that Publica.la does? How are they different around the world? Well, those are business decisions, business operations. And absolutely, I think that we're starting now with the simple concept of author sells book, reader buys book, e-reader wallet app that you download from the store and read on your device. That's something that everyone understands. But I'm absolutely convinced that this technology and this protocol is going to just gradually morph into all parts of the B2B e-commerce in publishing.
I also want to add that we have been discussing with one group from Europe that is connected with multiple publishers, and they told that currently it's on the agenda of every active publisher. Blockchain is on their agenda. They are not doing anything with it yet. They do not have any plans, but they are watching.
Yeah, that was the surprise at FutureBook, right? Where I gave that presentation, and I want to open up the questions, and I asked, so who are you? And they said, oh, we're a publisher. Great.
And pretty much they told that these guys, they feel that they have missed the ebook, and they don't want to miss the next big thing. So their idea for discussion was like, what if we just have a deal with the publishers? And I mean, the publishers, they control the books that are published through them. Yeah, they control the channels of distribution. And so we will have maybe 1,000 books instantly on the platform.
Yeah, and
while we are not really against that, we are not really chasing this opportunity, because while we see the certain benefits once the books are available for cryptocurrency, we do not see this as a really like killer application. I think the most important here is really this new paradigm of crowdfunding through ICO. So that's why we also currently are not starting, say, with authors who tell on Amazon already, so I want to publish it on Publica. I don't see really a strong case for readers coming to Publica if they can.
Oh no, definitely not. No, if you've already got your Kindle device in your hand and the credit card's already signed up with Amazon, go for it. No, I think it's going to be like I said. There's a lot of business in publishing in the whole ecosystem, and all of those businesses don't need to reinvent the blockchain part, right? They should just use the Publica one and go do what they're already doing, what they're already good at, because that's only part of the full author's journey or the reader's journey or the illustrator's journey, the editor's journey, the university's journey. This crowdfunding part or this coming together for the token event is just part of the overall journey. Books are a long game.
Yeah. And a few short questions, and then we'll see what new questions have been asked. The first one is would be great to talk with developers. Will there be an Ask Me Anything with developer team? Yes, there will be one. I think it makes sense to do it first week of the new year. And as you probably know, that the best developers, they might not be really the people who like to talk a lot or to explain the things. Well, some of them do, but we have visitors and we have the team, and we will set up a separate question list on the technical matters, and then there will be just a live meeting where you can ask more, and then they will provide some more answers if there will be enough questions on the technical matters. Will more PBL will be created? Well, kind of, the answer is no by the design, right? The smart contract has been locked. You see the source code. It's not possible to mint or create any more PBL tokens. How to get your tokens for free? Well, in general, you like nobody's expected to get something for free unless it's a certain giveaway event like we are doing right now. Usually it might be something in exchange of something. So it might not be fiat or cryptocurrency, but it can be community engagement, or it can be some funds reserved for incentivizing the ecosystem. Because it really is really, I mean, it amazes me personally, and many things that create behaviors never possible before. That ownership of tokens is aligning people so much, and I don't know. I don't have any example how it could be possible otherwise. So,
well, people who you know, like the same book, they kind of flock together too, right? If you like the same authors.
Yeah, yeah. And if we speak about getting PBL tokens, so we see a potential of long-term cooperation with industry influencers. We can assign certain fund for them, and they can see the token value grow pretty much based on any interactions they're doing publicly. So Publica community, ours, authors, readers, interests are completely aligned. Everybody wants to invest their time, their networks in the project. And some more extra questions. How many people from Scandiweb are working on this project?
Well, it kind of comes and goes, right?
Sorry? It's
kind of variable, right?
Yeah, it's well, there are full-time people, that's developers. There are, in December, there are 3 full-time, and then there's Valery, who's finishing some things where he has been involved, and he pretty much spends about 2 days per week with the team. And there is Vesters, also full-time. Then there is Alex, full-time, Joseph, Yuri, and me. And then there are designers. For example, Natalie, she has been presenting a landing page for authors a few weeks ago. So she works on demand, so she has a lot of things to do, so we don't need to employ her full-time or find a full-time designer. Then we have Vadims. He has been shooting a recent video. Well, he has been shooting a video with Vesters and video with Joseph explaining what is Publica. And then we have Daniel. He has been doing explainer videos. And I don't know, once platform is live, if we need a quality assurance, we also just take somebody for 16 hours, for example. And then we have a team of, say, we have a marketing department. So Alex is actually coming from there, so we kind of have. And we occasionally are engaging some more people from there, but so far on demand. and we look for a kind of a right candidate to lead, like to help Joseph to lead the author stream, because naturally Joseph is the best person to talk to authors first, especially to as you call them, famous authors, right? But of course we need a follow-up, we need a CRM, and for this, and I mean we need to reach out to a media, to social networks where the authors are, and schedule certain newsletter campaigns, and but pretty much I think say once we have authors, and I personally also am part of their customers, so we don't want just to hire a new person, explain all the story of almost 1 year, and then just pair with them anyway. So we just start each new process ourselves, and when we more or less understand how does it work, then we just delegate and make sure that it works correctly. So in the beginning, that's I think Joseph, Yuri, me, who are kind of testing every new role. We later can delegate to somebody within Scandiweb, or we can also hire outside, or we can also hire abroad. And I'm very happy to hear from community that we actually have found some people from our community channel who are now collaborating with us almost.
Yeah, I like that kind of organic growth, and I like the idea of everything that happens at Publica, we've done it ourselves at one point or another. When do you estimate that authors will be able to
launch their book ICOs?
And Antons, can you talk about, when I talk to authors, I have the same question. It comes up a lot. And I have to define, what does launch mean, right? So there's the day that you start talking about, I'm going to do a Publica book ICO. Okay, that could be yesterday. There's the day that the page opens, oh no, the day that the author selects their smart contract. Then there's the day that people can start buying into that smart contract. Then there's the day that you can download an e-reader wallet app. Then there's the day where you can start reading the book. Then there's the day when you can sell that book to somebody else. Okay, so help us out here.
There are several distinct stages. Say, one stage, as you mentioned, is actually when author announces that they're going to do their next book with Publica, so they can do it exactly yesterday. The next thing is to start their book ICO page on Publica, and we plan to do it on in the first quarter here. And same as with ICOs, you do not open your pre-sale or public sale immediately, right? First, you start with a page that promotes your ICO, right? So we do not need even a smart contract for that. And in the proof of concept, Vestros also described it with several illustrations. That the first step is just to kind of inform your community and have a certain place where they can get all the updates and discover your social media or groups. We'll see what authors and readers favor. Maybe it will not be Telegram. Maybe something else, maybe conventional web forum will work better for them. And that's also what we have to discover and see what works. And maybe they will be different. Say if it's crypto authors, they just put link to their Telegram, right? To the and then they speak there. And if it's a romantic science fiction, maybe they have their own social networks and forums where they will talk and invite more members, and only after we see that the book ICOs are ready for a sale, then we will allow the author to deploy the smart contract. There is preparing, we of course will also describe what does it mean to deploy a smart contract, what are the attributes that affect your end result. What are the options on locking of the funds and immediate release, or only step-by-step release, so they can make and understand all the choices, and maybe they maybe there will be also a category of Publica consultants, so to speak, that author can contract.
So that should be happening now, right? These Publica consultants and the authors trying to think through what they want to do in their book model. That should happen like now.
That's the very first step when we open, and it should be January next year, when we open a platform for registrations and training center, right? So now we just ask author to sign up. Next step, we will ask authors to register, and then we will by step with what it will take for them to go with a book ICO, how to market it. And
so I had an author ask me, so what do I sign with Publica? What contract do I sign? That's not really the right question, is it?
Yeah, that's the right question, and that's another stream that we didn't touch yet. Is it because we have to have a certain agreement between us? Because while we are not unlike publishers claiming any share of intellectual property of an author, all the intellectual property resides with an author. There's still a certain economic relationship between us, because also we as a Publica, to go on and continue, we have a protocol self-funding fee from all the proceedings of authors, right? Certain percentage. So we have a certain commercial agreement, and we have to prepare it, and it should tell and it should describe all the benefits and all the say ownership freedom that author has. At the same time, we also have to describe the fee structure that we have. But to speak about dates, January, you will be able to register and start kind of working on preparing your book ICO page. And first quarter of next year, book ICO pages will go public. And then we see when it will be the right time to start smart contract deployment. Because there is no point to deploy them and have zero sales, right? We have to have a queue of readers, like the same as with ICO. It's almost like whitelist. You see, wow, my whitelist is growing, so it's good time to open my my ICO, like to go into public ICO.
So another frequently asked version of that same question that I hear on the author side is, what if I bring a backlog of existing books, right? So, you know, because that could be very interesting as well, right? The crowdfunding model is, we're assuming this is a new book that we're talking about. Well, any successful author, they've got a backlog as well. And depending on what their contractual relationship is with the previous publisher, they can bring that entire catalog along, and which means those books could be part of the same book ICO or something, right? Different books at different prices, different packages, you know, just all different read tokens. So that will,
yeah, it's one option. Say if they want to, I mean, if they own the rights for their backlog, if they have been independent authors, they can just tell, okay, if you subscribe to my new book, you also get these books, for example, because smart contracts also allow. There was a question from a community member about if I have published, say, 5 books with you and I want to publish the next, I want to give discount for people who already owning my previous books. And it's quite easy. We just check that this particular public key that we get from a reader wallet app of a user also is featured in the solidity mapping of the smart contract particular book, and then once we validate that, we can give a discount. So there are different scenarios available, like just as many as you can imagine, and code subject to the affordances of current solidity language. But bringing just bringing backlog, I think it can be really interesting for some authors who are explicitly dealing with cryptography or blockchain for dummies, like books, because we can actually make user-unfriendly version of a reader app wallet for them. So their readers will actually experience all the kind of stages of acquiring cryptocurrency, figuring out your...
Which would actually be part of the book. I mean, that's actually relevant to the content of the book, isn't it?
Yeah, but otherwise, again, your backlog is already available somewhere. So we do not see that it will bring any additional value to author if they just publish it with Publica, because we are not going.
Oh no, I disagree. I disagree there completely. Because the long tail, available. Yeah, well, available doesn't mean it's being sold, and the fact that it's listed doesn't mean it's for sale everywhere in the world either. There are many misconceptions there, and you said yourself that it's about the interest level, it's about the community, it's about the building excitement. And you know, sometimes when I rediscovered the Rex Stout series, the Nero Wolfe series, or the Patrick O'Brien series, I went back and bought everything. Right, once I became then I wanted the whole thing again, right? Because it is about the engagement.
Yeah, makes sense. Maybe it will give an author like another leverage in self-promotion, promotion or marketing. So we might reconsider and make like a fast track without the book ICO. So you can just go and publish your book and then just just advertise it in your blog, because you don't need to have a Publica storefront for that, because it's just essentially...
Absolutely, do not need a Publica storefront. And often readers think of one book at a time, right? But authors think of in terms of lifetimes of books, because it is their lifetime. So different perspective. And so I want to summarize then. If you're an author, you should be talking to us yesterday, right now. If you're your author development page, we have the proof of concept out now. If you're an author and you want to comment on it, see it, now is the time to do that. At the end of the first quarter is when we're actually going to open up a book ICO page for book ICO. And then of course the other big pole in the tent is, so when do I get my Publica e-reader app on iTunes App Store?
Yeah. Well, Joseph, there are no more questions. Our first AMA is done.
All right. So that's the basic answer to the roadmap. Please keep writing to us on the Telegram channel and to our community managers. Thank you, Publicans. You are the community that makes this happen. And you've heard many of these questions came from you or people you know, and keep spreading it, because as the Forbes article said, even better than I could, in this day and age, it's always about engagement, and it's what we expect from the world, and we're going to get it from our books as well as our publishing venues and our authors, and the authors are ready to join us in that. So let's do this again soon.
Yeah, thank you guys. Really special thanks to our community. I remember times we have been just 100 or 200 people and just spending days and nights chatting and really figuring out what Publica really is for you and why it matters. And now we are a bit more. But I think still our community is really productive in terms of steering the project in the right direction.
So say goodnight from Spain. I'll say goodnight from snowy Lillehammer. You watch the sun go down. That's the candle burning outside.
It's
and happy holidays.
There. And here is still pretty sunny.
All right, I'll see you in the office next week then.
See you, Joseph. See you soon. And
bye-bye.
Talk to you all guys in the Telegram channel. Bye-bye.